All right, guys, welcome back to the Are You Really Woke podcast. Those of you who are new here, please like and subscribe on all platforms. Those of you that have already been here, thank you for coming again. And today we will be talking about the religious instruction of the Negroes, a sermon by Charles Colcutt Jones, Southern plantation owner. And he basically wanted to come up with instructions for how to convert Negro slaves and also Indian slaves into Christians. So he came up with basically an instruction guide, an instruction book to do so. And today we will be looking at that. So the beginning of the book begins with an address. So he poses the question, do they need the gospel? And has God put it in our power to give them the gospel? As you can see, the Negroes of our country come fairly within the range of our influence. We believe that they are men and the creatures of God, and like ourselves are moving onward to the retributions of eternity. And as philanthropists and Christians, we are bound to propose to ourselves and to answer these questions in regard to them. Do they need the gospel? See, right off back, they asking, do we need the gospel, as if we don't already have it, So if we were slaves and if we knew Christianity as slaves, then why are they, saying that, why are they even asking this question? Why are they asking, do slaves need the gospel? Okay, it goes on to say that we as Negroes, quote unquote Negroes, we lie, we steal, we blaspheme, we are slothful, envious, malicious, inventors of evil things, deceivers, covenant breakers, implacable, merciful. They are greatly wanting in natural affection, improvident, without understanding, and grossly immoral. So we're all of that. Then they say chastity is an exceeding rare virtue, which I thought was interesting, especially in today's context. And if you just keep reading down, he goes on to say numbers of them do not go to church and cannot tell us who Jesus Christ is, nor have they ever heard so much as the 10 Commandments read and explained. So that's just, not only the author Charles Colcutt Jones admitting that slaves didn't know who Jesus Christ was, but he said we didn't even know the 10 Commandments, which means we wasn't familiar with any facet, any aspect of Christianity, because we still existed in the confines of the traditional African spiritualities that we had come from, Even at this time, after they had beat us down, we were still talking amongst each other, exchanging knowledge with, new slaves, etc. Okay, so after that, he says, has God put into our power to give them the gospel? And he answers his own question by saying, yes, we think he has. The civil law does not forbid us to give them the gospel orally. We can therefore employ or permit them to visit our plantations for the purpose of instructing them, or we can undertake to instruct them ourselves, right? So they couldn't verbally teach us the gospel or convert us to Christianity, but they could have somebody come there and talk to them. I'm not sure what's up with that, but it's plain as day right here. And it goes on to say, in having our plantations, the time and persons of our servants wholly under our control, we can arrange the manner and frequency of our instructions, as we and the period of these instructions, with as much punctuality and with as little interruption as we can arrange the morning and evening devotions of our own fireside. So this is just them planning out how they could get missionaries or teachers into the plantations to teach enslaved Negroes the gospel of Christianity, or in other words, to convert them to Christianity. And they would also go on to create a society called the Propagation of the Gospel for Negro Slaves, and it would go on to be called Society of the Propagation of Christianity to Negro slaves. So this is at a time. This is 1832, at a time when slaves. I forgot what I was about to say. So let's go on to the next passage. These two questions then being answered in the affirmative, it follows that we are in duty bound to give our Negroes the gospel. So they feel like they have to give us the gospel. They need to give us the gospel because we're so ignorant, so unlearned, so, promiscuous, even, I guess, that we need the gospel by any means necessary, because we need to receive this dose of humanity or godlike instruction. All right. And you can even see that like in this paragraph where he says, we are bound to give them the gospel. Like they feel, it seems like if you read this book, it seems like he's like trying to save the southern plantations from eternal damnation or something. Because he's telling them like, we have to give these people like the gospel, because what if, you know, we just die and we go talk to God and he asks, why haven't you given them the gospel? You let them live their whole lives without giving them the gospel? You know, what if they go to hell? It's gonna be our fault. And I really thought that was interesting, because the southern plantation owner is, you know, having a morality crisis about this whole thing, you know, trying to instruct the Negroes and such. So he goes on to say, and how can we neglect their poor, diseased souls? In consistency, man, this is crazy. In consistency with this prayer, give me a second, people to load in, we have assisted in sending missionaries to the heathen thousands of miles from us and to destitute settlements in our country. We have assisted in printing Bibles and tracts and in sending them into every family in our land and in foreign lands. So, you know, they seen the slaves and the Indians, the so-called Negroes and the so-called Indians, they seen them as heathens, right? And so they sent missionaries to all these places in the country, in the United States, and, you know, in other, you know, parts of the world, to try to get rid of these heathens. And it was part of, like, you know, at this time, a 200-year extermination of every religion that wasn't Christianity, you know. So if you didn't believe in Christianity back in the 1400s, 1500s, the late 1400s, 1500s, and so on, they would exterminate you. They would come to your homeland, the Bible missionaries, and, you know, if you didn't take a hold to the religion, they would come there and strongly, you know, recommend that you convert to Christianity. And anybody who really from any other part of the world besides America probably has gone through these sort of tactics. But anyway, back to the book. It says, what have we done for our poor Negro, right? For we withhold the Bible from our servants and keep them in ignorance of it, while we will not use the means to have it read and explained to them. Boom. Slaves, Negroes never knew about the Bible. They never knew about the Ten Commandments. They never knew about Jesus Christ. They never knew about Christianity whatsoever. It just never existed. Now, different forms existed. He goes on to say, we cast our infirm, our aged, and our infirm, our elderly, and I'm assuming infirm is, I'm not sure, sick people, and tender infants into the river to be devoured by crocodiles, which is crazy. We know about some of those stories. If you really delve into the history, I know some of us know about that. It also says our inconsistency in withholding the gospel from our servants, and both as philanthropists and as Christians, is most glaring, nor can we deny it. So they have withheld the gospel from servants, but we are bound to give them the gospel. They again say we are bound to give them the gospel. Crazy. Hence, it is that the Christian feels such an interest in the conversion and salvation of men that he is willing to make any sacrifice to obtain this object, or this objective, rather. When the Christian is insensible to the condition of those who are perishing around him, and makes no effort for their salvation, the desire of the Christian to give, this is just crazy, okay? When the Christian is insensible to I'm pretty sure you got to read the context before that, but I'm really trying to keep this video short, sorry. All right, so we're going to go on to the green. Admitting then that we were in the condition of the Negro, and he is in our condition, able to read and appreciate the gospel. So at this point, they're talking about when whites were enslaved. If you don't know that, check out Cat Williams' new stand-up about white people being enslaved. He actually makes a joke out of it, but it's very true. White people were enslaved. And if you check this out, this part of the book actually says, admitting then that we were in the condition of the Negro, and he in our condition, meaning that we were superior to white people and white people were slaves. But he's making a very important distinction here. He's saying during that time, they were able to read and appreciate the gospel, which is, you know, as we know, everything, culture, identity, language, you know, history, everything was taken from us so-called Negroes, black people. Negro and black is the same thing, means the same thing. It was taken from us, and he knew that, like a lot of Caucasian people know. They know their history better than African Americans do, which is why they have the upper hand in this country, I believe. All right, so let's go on to the next page. If I can get my computer to work with me here. All right, and it says, and once more we are bound to give them the gospel. They are bound to give us the gospel. Imagine that. We have to have the gospel. He say they need the gospel. God has put it in our power to give them the gospel, and we are bound to do it by humanity. Like, it's their humanity to give us the gospel, not treat us right, not, release us from slavery, put us under better conditions, give us, let's just say, reparations, which white people are mad that they haven't gotten their reparations. That's why they don't think we deserve reparation. Hashtag, we were enslaved harsher than white slaves, if that can even be a hashtag. Okay. It says we cannot excuse ourselves by saying that Negroes have the gospel already. Their opportunities of hearing the gospels are limited, for although generally speaking, all are permitted to go to church on Sabbath, yet only a part on the plantations can go to each Sabbath, as it is not permitted, nor can we say that it is desirable that all should leave the plantations at a time. So they, even though we have religion, they said, well, we are bound to give them the gospel. We can't say that they have it all. We can't say that they have it already. So, and they can't get enough of us off the plantation and into the church to attend the gospel at one time. So they really got to figure out how to really dissect it, how to really split us up and get us in there. Okay, maybe group A, get in there, learn Christian, slowly learn the gospel in an effort to be converted into a Christian. And then group B, and then group C, get in there. And then it's a gradual process of being what they call collocated, or brainwashed or instilled, or they repeat the same thing perpetually to you until it's really ingrained in your head. And that's really the process of how they really got us to be slaves, right? So he goes on to say the gospel is preached to them in an unknown tongue. Boom. The gospel is preached to them in an unknown tongue. We have colored ministers, but their numbers are wholly inadequate to the supply of Negroes. They needed more Negroes. Some of them whose moral character is justly suspected and who may be considered blind leaders leading the blind. Boom. So not only then that they have, crooked pastors, crooked preachers or whatever, but we have them now. Not only did they have them back then, but we have them now. They've been here for a long time. They've been cooning and conniving and bootlicking for a very long time. So I'm gonna end this right here so I can have a part 2, because it's already over 10 minutes. But the last part of this video, we will see him say, but to suppose them too ignorant to comprehend the plainer or plantation owner and more essential doctrines of Christianity is certainly to disregard the testimony of God's word as well as the testimony of facts. So they really were saying, like, we can comprehend the plantation owner and we can comprehend the doctrines of Christianity. You know what I'm saying? They thought that we was too dumb as black people to comprehend the doctrines or the indoctrination of Christianity. So they just, he's really making his case for us, like, please just convert these poor Negro souls. They just so lost. And like, he's really putting it in a way where it's digestible for other Southern plantation slave owners and other Southern slave owners as a whole, right? And then I'm gonna leave it with this, where he says, nor can we excuse ourselves because the gospel meets with so little success among them. And what that means, and we will go more into it in part 2 or maybe part 3, depends on how much I can get through in part 2. So what he's saying is that the African slaves were very reluctant to take in Christianity. That's why all the revolts actually happened. because they was trying to convert us, or well, it's not just why it happened. But as he said, nor can we excuse ourselves because the gospel meets with so little success among them. They tried to convert Negro slaves. They tried to push Christianity up on them. They even tried to use some of the things that they knew Africans didn't like or religious about to use it against them. And that's actually how they ended up getting them to convert, because they actually end up mixing in some African beliefs into Christianity to get them to go. But anyway, the Africans were revolting, and they didn't want to convert to Christianity. So this guy was like, I got this idea. Like, he was like, I got this idea. All right. What if we just, and I'm going to show y'all this in part 2 or part 3. This guy was like, so what if I show y'all that the way to getting them to convert is to root the obedience in religion. So if you want obedient slaves tied to religion, and it was like, oh, they slowly start seeing more and more Negroes being converted at different plantations, and it was like, oh, the light bulbs just going off in different plantation owners' heads, and it was like, oh, my Negroes are acting different now that they've been converted to Christianity. Then they start telling other slave owners, and slowly but surely, Christianity started spreading amongst the southern enslaved Africans, which was really interesting. And if you're new here, check out my video on the Society for the Propagation of Christianity for the Negro. I forget exactly the name. It's such a long title. They was more long-winded back then, I guess. But yeah, they created societies or organizations. They created organizations to be able to convert us from our traditional African systems into Christian slaves, so that we would be more obedient. And you'll see in this book, the plan is actually to use Christianity as a tool of obedience. It's not like it's used to, enlighten us and bring us out of the darkness. No, it's strictly being used as a tool of manipulation. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm sure this is an interesting concept. I'm gonna split these videos up into some shorts and see if I can get a few views on these videos, because I think they're very important to the culture, to my culture as an African man living in America, or as an African American. I think these videos are very important because we don't have all this knowledge that's in a book. And they tell us if you want to hide it from a black person, put it in the book. And so now you got to open the book. So I'm gonna give you the book. You just got to listen. And then maybe you'll pick up the book, you know what I'm saying? So thank you for tuning in. And like I say, follow me across all platforms, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. And as usual, we always got to ask, are you really woke? Peace out.